following a disappointing 6th place Premier League finish. A season in transition would seem to be ahead for Manchester United and their manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He himself has said that challenging for the title next year would be a miraculous season. With 8 defeats in their final 12 games of the season in all competitions, the club's first priority will be to turn that abysmal record around. But what should Manchester United do next? We've spoken to fans, journalists and the people involved to get their view. Let us know yours in the comments below.
Do you know, I don't think anybody can really tell what's going to happen with Manchester United because there are so many unknowns. This time last year, there was evidently an element of discontent between the manager and the club, between the players and the manager, between the fans and the whole setup, between the owner or the owners and the people that run the club and the manager. And I don't think that's there now, but I don't think anybody could truly say hand on heart how this is going to go.
Going into this season, I already think Ole's under pressure, and it pains me to say that. I do. I think because we lost to teams like Cardiff and drew at Huddersfield, because we sort of threw away a decent chance of getting into the Champions League after we did all the hard work, I think he's put pressure on himself, and I think the board are the type of board that would panic, that they would get rid of him. If he had a run at the beginning of this season, a similar run to what he had at the end of last season, I think he's going to be in serious trouble, and I think we could end up seeing Ole leaving by Christmas. I hope I'm wrong. I really do, and I hope he does hit the ground running, and I hope that United get back to where they belong, which is challenging near the top.
They need to decide, and they would say they already have done, but actually in practice, when it comes to it, that if he starts off, if he is their man, and they're giving him a 3-year contract, and they just announced Phelan basically the last weekend of the season as the assistant manager, officially. So that says, he's their man. But then Mourinho got a contract extension in the January of last year, and then he got sacked by Christmas. Now, I'm not saying that was a bad decision, the sacking, but what I'm saying is the Glazers, and Edward Wood, who's obviously the executive vice chairman, understand that it's a rebuild. So they need to give him time. I know it's a very simple answer, nothing revelatory. And, see if it can work for him. The problem with sport, though, generally is you can do all those things that I just said and set off with the right intentions, then you lose, and I'm exaggerating here a bit, but to make the point, you lose the first 10, and it's like, well, why should we continue with this guy? So I get that.
United have to recruit properly. You are only as good as the team you can put out. It doesn't matter how good the manager is. In terms of, is Solskjaer the right man? I see there's a lot of people asking questions about that, but because of the way it finished, I'm preferring to try and look at the way it started and the sort of style of play that he implemented in his first couple of months, really, because he went on a hell of a run up until that Liverpool game when we got 4 injuries. And I think that 4 injuries coincided with him getting the job on a permanent basis. And I think that distinction of the permanent from the temporary is massively overplayed. I don't think it makes anywhere near the difference that people are trying to place upon it.
Solskjaer came in, he delivered what he delivered. And the fact remains that they ended the season much nearer the top 4 than when Solskjaer took over. And he deserves credit for that. And is there credit in the bank for that? I think potentially there is, but only possibly because Solskjaer is who he is and people want him to succeed. And that's, the fans want him to succeed, probably the media want him to succeed. And clearly the board want him to succeed, and the players, I think, want him to succeed as well.
I think Solskjaer wants to play that high-tempo, press from the front, counter-attacking style of play, which I think really suits this group of players. And I think it'll suit this group of players more once he adds a couple more stars to it. I think we need to strengthen at the back, undoubtedly. I think we need to strengthen at right back, undoubtedly. Aside from that, a sprinkle in of quality and maybe a bit of squad depth everywhere else is probably going to be a good thing for us if we can maintain most of the top players that we've still got without losing them.
They almost need a little bit of magic. They need to start off the season kind of with a similar run as you just described then, which I believe was winning the first 8. And I think it was something like winning the first 12 or 14 or something altogether. It was a remarkable run. You just need that. And then, to sort of To be able to do that, though, they're going to need some good players. They need kind of what they've needed for the last 3 or 4 years. I would say they need a left back. I'm not convinced by Shaw 100%. Dalot looks okay, but you're still an unknown quantity. De Gea is probably going to leave, or it'd be a surprise if he stays, if I could put it that way. To me, anyway.
If he doesn't want to sign a contract, this is the 3rd time the guy's tried to leave us. Go, if you want. We can replace you. Certainly we can replace the form that we saw towards the end of the season. My only issue with anybody going is, does the board have the ability to replace them sensibly? That's the issue United board has had for years, is that we seem to favour that big money signing over the sensible signing. Supposedly last summer there was money there for Varane, who didn't want to come to United, but there wasn't money there for Alderweireld, who did want to come to United and would have improved us. So I hope that focus that we're starting to see with the likes of Dan James being linked, I hope that we're looking in a different area for players. I hope that we're going with players that fit what Solskjaer is trying to achieve more than what the commercial side wants to achieve. Because if we do that, then we can be a commercial success by being a good football team for a change.
Need a centre-back or 2. So there's the whole defence I've basically described that they kind of need to replace or strengthen. They need a central midfielder who's got a bit of magic about him. You tell me who their David Silva is. You've got a very good midfielder there, Paul Pogba, who I think is the only world-class player there, but he's not that kind of magician. He needs some talent around him. All of this, then you get up to the forwards, you're not scoring enough goals. I think you got 66 goals this season or something. I was looking back actually. The Van Gaal season when he got sacked? You scored 49. It's just terrible. I'm sorry, it just is, and that's been a pattern though. That's since Ferguson went.
But you have to bring more incisiveness in the final third, and it's not easy. It's not easy for any team. It's not easy for Tottenham. It's not easy for Liverpool. It's not easy for Manchester City. But you have to have the players who are capable of opening up defences in the final third, because what you cannot do is play the way that Leicester won a league title, sit back, and then hit on the break for people like Vardy, because Manchester United can't play like that. Manchester United have to attack. That's what the fans sing. Attack, attack, attack. That's what they demand. So if you can't do that, you're not going to survive long as Manchester United manager, because that's not the way that Manchester United play, the DNA of Manchester United. Solskjaer spoke about it over and over and over again. He didn't play for a Manchester United team that hit on the break. He played for a Manchester United team that attacked. He has to deliver that. He knows he has to deliver that. But we won't know whether United are fit enough and have the players to do it until they start playing.
I do think the signing of Daniel James represents the club moving in a different direction. And the thing is here at United, everyone can sort of have the cake and eat it in a way. I think, you look at the Glazers and their economics, they obviously would rather spend less money. And I think we can actually get the players we need by not going for the 90 million, 80 million pound signings, by bringing in some of the young players that are played in the English League. I don't care if the player is British or English, but if they played in the British League or the English League, I think that helps. Especially you look at Daniel James, he's been in the Championship, a tough league as a youngster as well. Only, I think, 21. He's had a full season there and played some really good games against some good clubs, including in the FA Cup against Manchester City as well. And I think when you look at some of the players that we've been linked with, the likes of Aaron Wan-Bissaka and maybe James Maddison as well, there's players there that are clubs in the lower half of the Premier League or the bottom half or the mid-table clubs that United could get and should be going for. And I think they would improve United, and they could be players for the future as well.
Realistically, if you come out of the summer, it's a massive if this, by the way, but if you come out of the summer with a sort of 3 really good signings, don't have to be world class, but 3 really good signings that can be part of a team, it's a good start. But I think he's kind of right when he says Solskjaer, when he said it'd be miraculous or a miracle if you're going to challenge for the title next season. But it's football. Liverpool closed. Liverpool were 3rd, or was it 4th, season before last, to City. They closed a massive gap. I don't know how many it was, but it was over 20 points to City to end up by a point.
The likes of Alexis Sanchez spending big money. We were linked in last summer with Alderweireld or Willian and players like that who were coming towards the end of the career, going to be on massive money, going to be on big wages. If you're going after those players, it's more short-termism, and I don't know if it works as well. And then if a new manager comes in, we'll want to get rid of him. If you get young players that are going to last a few seasons, it helps everyone. It helps United because we're getting players that are hungry, that can do a job in this division and help move the club forward. They're only going to get better, and in a few years' time, if it comes to the situation where you do want to move him on, you can move him on and bring in other players. They'll still have a few years left in him, so you can still get good money for them. I think we need to sort of look at where we're at now. We need to be realistic. We're not challenging for Champions League. We're not even in the Champions League. We're probably not going to be challenging for the title next season, realistically. We are a club at the minute that is challenging for top 4, and we need to start thinking which players can help us get into the top 4. And I think there are good young players out there that can do that, and hopefully Daniel James will be one of them.
If the reason they're doing this is because for the first time in however many years there is a player from a sort of so-called lesser club, championship club, who they think could be decent, then, you know, go for him. If it's actually a sea change where they're only going to go for those sort of players, forget about it. You understand the point I mean? Because you can have a bit of both. It's got to work, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, fair play to them in a way. Listen, if we end the summer and it's just Daniel James, then...
I would like to see a director of football brought in, as long as it's a director of football that's given the powers of a director of football and not someone who's just been appointed in name only. They need to be able to help pick the transfers. They need to be able to look ahead 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years and plan what's going to be happening with the club ahead of time. The fact that we've still got someone like Ashley Young playing at fullback as first choice and as captain is an absolute disgrace.
United, though, traditionally have found it very difficult. Again, I was looking at this, since he left Ferguson, and I'm sorry to harp on about Ferguson all the time, but it is a kind of sort of year zero for what's going on now. Who is the best signing since Ferguson left? Is it Ibrahimovic, possibly, on a free, or is it Pogba? And then after that, I think you've got we can debate, you might say Martial, or someone else might say, I don't know, Victor Lindelof, but there's a general point there where there's not really been any amazing 3 or 4 players in sort of 6, 7 years. And there has to be a reason for that, because it is Manchester United.
The fact that we've allowed the experience and quality of those that last won the title with us in 2013 to ship away is an absolute disgrace. The likes of Smalling and Phil Jones and all them, they was back up to the likes of Rio and Vidic. I don't think they was ever going to have the quality to overtake them. So why haven't we replaced them? Why are we looking at 6 years on from that last title win and we still don't have a team that's even close to it? You know, where's the Wayne Rooney's? Where's the Nemanja Vidic? Where's the Patrice Evras? Where's that top draw level of footballer? Until we get top draw level footballers, the likes that we're linked to, if we could get de Ligt, fantastic. I'd be shocked if we do. If we can get Koulibaly, fantastic. I'll be shocked if we do. Wan-Bissaka seems like such an obvious signing. We have to make it happen. Toby Alderweireld is allegedly available for 25 million. Why has that not been wrapped up? That's a free transfer in today's market. It seems like United are more interested in who sells shirts than what's going to improve us as a football team. I think our structure could be a lot better. I think our owners could be a lot better. But that's another story for another day.
Every summer since he left Ferguson, so it's now 6, is it? Or is it the 7th? Be the 7th? Been the same old question, really. What's going on there? This director of football is interesting because we at The Guardian did that story originally last August. Here we are in May, or is it 10 months later, 9 months later, and the role hasn't been filled, and it's kind of been downgraded from what I was told it was going to be. So it was going to be an overarching director of football, in charge of all of the football, supremo, and now it's a technical director who's sort of going to work alongside the first team manager, which is fine, but they won't have, the manager and the recruitment department will still have a veto, which is fair enough, I suppose, but...
I'm glad Mike Phelan's involved. I think Mike Phelan's experience when it comes to a relatively inexperienced backroom setup. Now, Ollie's quite experienced as a manager with Mulder, but he's not very experienced with a top European football team that's competing on multiple fronts. Michael Carrick's brand new to the coaching game. Kieran McKenna has dealt with youth football, but again, new to first team coaching. So having somebody like Mike Phelan, I think he's very useful. I'm glad that he's still part of the coaching staff and involved in the day-to-day rather than wearing a suit.
If you speak to people around Solskjaer, around the coaching setup, they think the fall-off, the dramatic fall-off at the end of the season came because the players, after Solskjaer took over, after that early Christmas, New Year period, they were worked so hard in January that actually, when the wheels began to come off, with the FA Cup defeat at Wolves, with that key defeat before the international break at Arsenal, which knocked United out of the top 4 after they'd fought so hard to get in it. it was difficult to kind of like get up again when results started to go wrong. And the players in the end were just exhausted, and mentally and physically they were worn out, and they were a bit down, and that led to the tail off. The big defeat at Everton, the defeat at home to Cardiff on the last day, the draw at Huddersfield, both the last two results were fairly embarrassing. But, you know, the narrative is that the players were knackered, for want of a better word, and, you know, they weren't fit enough.
Pre-season is so important. It's so key to what we're trying to do. We have to have a good pre-season. Thankfully, we're not in the qualifying rounds of the Europa League, because that would really have screwed up what we was trying to do. We was the worst or second worst team for distance covered and sprints and runs and work rate last year. That's unacceptable. I can accept being beat. I can't accept being outworked. And I think Solskjaer's have the same sort of mentality. We started to outwork people in those first couple of months, but I think that the conditioning wasn't there and the players weren't used to it. And I think that tapering off that coincided with the injuries really affected us. Still doesn't explain why we're losing at home to Cardiff 2-0 on the last day. But I'm hoping that a good pre-season, the players that want to go and he wants to go are able to go, and then we're able to go forward with a team that's got the same mentality, the same hunger. And I think we might surprise a few people next year if he's able to do that.
You know, let's wait and see what happens. I've got to say that I'm quite ambivalent about the chances of United. You know, if I just look at, they're 32 points behind City, which is the same gap to Cardiff City, who went down third bottom. You know, it's football, it's sport. It can be romantic, and, you know, these stories happen out of nowhere. So that's what's going to have to happen for United to sort of be credible next season, really.
It's only when they have this pre-season, it's only when Solskjaer and the coaching staff drive them in the way that he wants to. It's only when he starts bringing in the kind of players, and I'm not necessarily talking about big name players, but players who've got energy, players who've got vitality, players who can, in theory, get United working the way that Solskjaer wants them to. It's only when they start to play that we will get a rough idea of whether Solskjaer can bring about the improvement that United fans demand.
What success? I think success next season is top 4. United fans aren't going to want to hear that, but it's just being realistic. And just top 4 in a way that you're playing well, and, you know. But I'm just a bit concerned that it could get off to a sticky start, you know, for United, and suddenly it'd be like, well, wait a minute, you ended abysmally, and you're starting pretty bad. There's a pattern here. So, you know, but I do, you know, if you ask me a slightly different question, do I think he's the right man? Yes, I do. I think he's got something about him. He gets the club, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but he's part of an all-round package that you've not had since Ferguson. But listen, he has to prove or sort of halfway to Ferguson managerial ability, you know, the actual. But he's got a lot of things going for him.
People can have theories, people can believe they know what the answer is, but I don't think anybody can truly know until there's been a pre-season for Solskjaer to get his ideas across and to get the players as fit as he wants them to be, because I truly do not believe that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants Manchester United to be a counter-attacking team, and that is where they got their best results last season under Solskjaer, and that is also the way that they were set up under Mourinho, and that is the way that they were kind of almost focused on being. I think they have to be a front foot team. I think they have to be able to take the fight to their opponents. And in order for that to happen, I think they've got to be fit. And I don't believe they were fit enough at any point last season.
So that's what those contributors think. Thanks to them for taking part. Let us know what your views are in the comments below. What should Manchester United do next? Which club would you like us to look at next? Subscribe for more videos like this on the Squawka YouTube channel.